Kiwi Ears has certainly been on a roll this past year. They have another new IEM out, the Melody, their first planar magnetic IEM. One suspects that they may have developed the driver in tandem with the microplanars used in the quintet. At least they are saying that it was developed in-house, and it is an odd size in the planar world, a 12 millimeter. They also claim that the Melody, to quote, is a bass lover's dream, with a tuned emphasis on the planar's powerful bass output. Powerful bass is not a term I would have associated with planar drivers, from my limited experience. In fact, I would have said that the planar bass, while fast and detailed, almost always lacks the physical impact of a dynamic driver. It's just the physics of moving air and the way our ears work. The flat diaphragm of the planar, vibrating in a magnetic field between magnets, just does not have the extension to push a formidable wave to the eardrum. It can reproduce bass frequencies, but never equal the raw power of a dynamic driver. Despite that, Kiwi Ears has managed to produce a planar IEM with a particularly deep and impressive bass. Deep for sure, extending well into the sub-bass, in a way that most of my IEMs do not. And the volume is certainly just about on par with a dynamic driver of the same size. But the impact? The physical sensation of waves slamming into your eardrums, let alone your body, that true bass heads love, well, the laws of physics might be skirted a bit, but they still apply. Or at least Kiwi Ears has not managed to rewrite them yet. Loud, clear, detailed bass, but still lacking just a bit of impact. Despite that, and depending on your musical taste, the bass will most likely be what you notice first about the melodies. On some tracks it is so present, so hard to ignore, that it takes you a moment to notice that it is not, in fact, disturbing the balance of frequencies or muddying up the music. The bass is just as fast as you would expect from a planar, with good detail and texture, solid from sub-bass up through mid-bass, and without any noticeable bleed into the mid-range. It is not all thump and no information. It is articulate and, for the most part, well-behaved bass. While it might be loud in the mixed, it never gets out in front of the vocals or instruments. Even at its most aggressive, it's always just a step behind and lets the voices, guitars, pianos, cellos sing on their own. In an orchestral setting, whether New Age, as in Timothy Crane's expansive work, or in a piece like Gardner's Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, it stays back behind the instrument section where it belongs, and considering the amount of it, that's impressive in itself. To my ear, the mid-range frequencies, both vocals and instruments, are present enough to carry their own weight and stay up front of the heavy bass. Mid-range is neither too full or too thin, just about perfectly placed and relatively smooth and natural considering it's still a planar driver. I don't hear nearly the amount of sharp metallic timbre that I hear in my Lecture S12 Pros on strings and brass, or the harsh, rough edges and sibilants I hear on both male and female vocals on the KZ PR2X-HBB. I'm not sure, but I think I have the second revision of the PR2s, the one without the filter, and that uncertainty and the uncertainty around the whole IEM has kept me from reviewing them. What's the point if you don't know what you're going to get from the factory? Still, my PR2s make a handy reference for the melody. To my ear, all planars have a slightly different, slightly artificial sound. It has, I think, something to do with the decay of notes and how it affects the forward-moving harmonics. A planar is so fast that it seems to cut the note off immediately after the fundamental note sounds, leaving it hanging there, sort of lonely and naked, rather than letting the happy reverberations run ahead and play with the next notes and put some clothes on it. Yes, that's a metaphor stretched out of all shape. But that artificial impression is why I seldom listen to my S12 Pros. I have to say I hear much less of that abrupt isolation of notes in the melodies. To my ears, they sound almost like a dynamic BA hybrid, or at least as much like one as any planar I've ever heard. And again, to my ear, that's a good thing. Instruments sound, for the most part, quite natural, and voices come across with a combination of just a bit of warmth and an abundance of detail that is very satisfying. There are already some reviewers out there saying they don't like the treble on the melodies. I'm not one of them. I think the treble is crisp and clean and sparkly, just right to balance out the major bass. Of course, I'm 76 and have, according to the online hearing test, the ears of a 70-year-old. But that still means I don't hear much over 8,500 cycles per second and nothing over 9,000. So when I say the treble is just right for my ears, take that into account, especially if your ears are younger. And the Melody has the technical performance you would expect from a planar. Instrument placement and separation are excellent, as are the dynamics, and what they call layering. I'm able to sort out the most complex mixes of the most complex tracks. In fact, the more complex the mix, take something like Shannon from Timothy Crane, the more the melodies provide a revelation of detail that comes very close to the quintets or the pen-on fan twos. The soundstage is not super wide or super spacious, extending subjectively just beyond my ears on both sides and about an apparent 6 inches in front of my eyes. Nothing compared to the fan twos, which seem to fill a room around me, but wider than your average under $100 IEM. And the space is incredibly detailed, every note on every instrument precisely placed. It is crisp without being crispy, sharply defined without being sharp-edged, if that makes any sense to you. For a more detailed comparison of the melodies to the other two planars I've spent time with, the Melody has much more bass than the S12 Pros, and to my ears, a much warmer and more natural sound. The S12s sound thin and anemic by comparison, and you can take anemic to mean bloodless. The PR2s have almost as much bass as the Melodies, but the bass is blunted and without texture by comparison, and both midrange and treble are way smoother and more natural on the Melodies than on the PR2s. Drivability-wise, the S12s take the most power to reach a comfortable volume, and the PR2s come in next, and quite a bit easier to drive than the S12 Pros. The Melodies are no harder to drive than many of my dynamic and BA driver IEMs. In fact, when compared to an excellent hybrid IEM that comes in at just $20 more than the Melodies, the Simgot EM6L or Phoenix, the hybrid is a tiny bit more natural sounding, with about the same bass, midrange, and treble balance. The Melody has perhaps a bit more sub-bass and a bit more extended treble, but on most music it's hard to hear the difference. Soundstage size goes to the Phoenix by a hair, but soundstage detail goes to the Melody by quite a bit more. Both the Phoenix and the Melody are IEMs that I can listen to all my music on and enjoy every moment. Despite being hybrid and planar, they are more alike than they are different. If the Melody has anything over the Phoenix, it's the sense of expanded dynamics, the sheer energy of the music reproduced. All in all, I find the Melody to be lovely to listen to. They do every song on my test playlist to my satisfaction. If not the best I've heard it, at least good enough so I don't feel the need to switch IEMs. And on the more complex tracks, I'm hearing something new at every turn, and that's something I really enjoy. When listening to the Melodies, even casually doing other things, I often have to stop and marvel at how incredibly balanced they sound. The bass is impressive, but the mid-range and especially the treble keep right up with it, producing what we used to call a wall of sound. Some of you may remember when hi-fi equipment came with a loudness button. There's still a loudness preset on most equalizer apps. Loudness attempts to adjust the relative volume of the frequency spread to ensure that you hear the same music with the same relative impact at whatever volume you're listening, boosting bass and treble as you turn the volume down, increasing the apparent dynamic range of the music, backing off as you turn the volume up. The Melodies give the impression of having the loudness button on all the time. Not a bad thing, as it makes the music sound super lively and dynamic. And in almost all the tracks in my library, that's a good thing. And it scales well. It is as satisfying on intimate vocals like the ones on Nothing But Green Willow by folk guitarists Martin Simpson and Tom Jutz, or the delicate harmonies of See You Around by I'm With Her, as it is on pounding classical rock crossover like the single by Brooklyn Duo and Simply 3, Don't Stop Believing. It might just be that controlled energy, that sense of expanded dynamics, that makes me really like the Melodies. As far as fit and finish goes, the Melodies seem very well made, as usual with Kiwi Ears products. The faceplate is a dark gray brushed metal, very nice. Early units apparently only had the Kiwi Ears logo on one side. Mine has it on both. The darker resin shell is less molded than their previous offerings, but is one of the most comfortable IEMs I have tried to date, with an excellent seal that allows me to use one size smaller ear tips than usual for added comfort, and they stay in my ears just fine. Which brings me to my one major gripe about the Melodies. I would love to have the ear of whoever manages pricing and marketing at Kiwi Ears. I think they made a major strategic mistake with the Melodies, and it is not, in my opinion, their first. I have said right along that the quintets should be selling for $280 at least. I think that's the value Kiwi Ears should have put on them to reflect the competitive value they provide to the customer. At $219, they compete with the Eiffel Performer 5s, the Yume 2, the new Giz Audio Chopin, and a bunch of single DD and 1+4 hybrids, when they should be competing with the Moondrop Blessing 3, their own Orchestra Light, and even IEMs right up to the Eiffel Performer 8. The $219 price, unfortunately, says that Kiwi Ears only thinks they're worth that much. Sure, put them on sale occasionally for $230 or even $220, and make your customers really happy, but don't undervalue what you make or sell. The Melodies, unfortunately, come in KZ quality packaging, with KZ quality accessories. Both the cable and the ear tips are pure throwaway. Junk is maybe too harsh a word, but really. And there is no case in the box at all. So what is Kiwi Ears telling us? That the Melody is only trying to compete with KZ quality products? This is an IEM that should have, in my opinion, been priced to compete with the Let's Shure S12 Pro and the new Hadiz MP145P and other planars in the under $200, maybe even under $300 range. Kiwi Ears could have made it a bargain at $135 to match the frequent on-sale price of the S12 Pro, since it does not have the useless, in my opinion, tuning nozzles to justify the higher price of the M145P. Come on, Kiwi. I'm all for a bargain, but show us that you have enough faith in your product to provide a decent cable and tips and case and to price it to go head-to-head with its real competition. I have a feeling that the Melody is going to be another quintet. There are going to be a lot of people who love it for what it does well. Excellent bass with the technicalities of a planar and the mid-range and treble of a hybrid. A planar that is a pleasure to listen to on almost any music. And there are going to be those who do not like it, maybe even hate it, because it does not do what they expect or want it to do. Not planar enough, or too planar, too bassy, or too shrill. But that is the IEM market today. Lots of opinions, lots of different ears and musical taste, and lots of choices. Just don't be fooled, either by the price, or the cheap packaging, or the naysayers. The Melody is, in my opinion, worth a listen. And some of you are really going to like it. It is, honestly, the best planar IEM I have heard to date, or at least it's the one I like best.